What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some big news that came out for Tesla that could be very big involving their Model Y, and why Tesla is due for a bit of a bounce if we could hold a key level. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right over here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free NVIDIA stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of NVIDIA plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 or more to get $300 worth of NVIDIA plus $100, or deposits $50,000 or more to get $1,000 of free NVIDIA stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, so please use my link down below to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So, looking at Tesla in the broader markets, I want to say that Tesla got a bit of a hit right here. Their overall deliveries numbers were very, very awesome. We had 497,000 plus deliveries for Tesla during Q3. There was a big surge in demand for EVs in the United States because of the ending of the EV tax credits. And this caused Tesla to pump all the way up to about this 480 area during the pre-markets. But then we just dumped really hard right after. And the reason for that was because much of the news was priced in. This was not necessarily a big surprise. Tesla was already rallying for quite some time. And then on top of that, seasonality and other factors also played somewhat of a role, because I showed you guys in my previous video, and historically, October is a more bearish month for Tesla. Tesla does tend to sell off in October, but November and December do they tend to be like a lot stronger, if anything. So as far as Tesla's going, we got this massive dump. We actually dumped quite a bit, going from 480 all the way down to about 416. And the one thing I was talking about was the possibility of a head and shoulders that's forming here. So, like, this could be sort of like a left shoulder. This is like your head. Then we could be going for a right shoulder for some kind of defensive bounce before potentially dipping lower if we get another rejection. If we make a lower high again, that's another possibility. Now, considering we have a bearish engulfing candle on the daily time frame, one thing I want to mention is that we did bounce near our 20 EMA here, which could be a sign that we want to continue to go a little bit higher. And the head and shoulders pattern is also very present on the daily, right? We could be still forming this like right shoulder, but that gives me reason to believe this might be trying to bounce a bit. And then when you go once again back to the weekly, this is the first time we got this like rejection on the weekly. Will we kind of like bounce it, but then continue to fall back down to fill this gap over here? There's a quite crystal clear gap all the way down to about 395, which opens the door for bears to bring us down in the future. So what I'm seeing is that on the 4 hour, we have support at 430. Notice we're forming a wick right over here at the 430 mark. There's a good chance we do try to bounce off this if we hold 430 tomorrow. For at least 4 hours on the close, if we hold 430, I do expect us to push back up to 440. We could go a little bit higher than maybe consolidate, but in case we don't hold 430, we could see a little bit more downside first before another attempt to bounce. So I'll be watching 430 very carefully. But there is some good news coming out that could fuel a bounce, at least possibly. The good news is that there were photos that came out on a subreddit that basically are showing a snow white or a white looking Model Y driving on a Texas road while wearing a Florida manufacturer's license plate. So that's very interesting right here. Could this be the more affordable Model Y? I think we have like a picture of it like right over here. Could this be it? Is there going to be a more affordable Model Y coming? We do believe it's going to be the case, and it's going to be under $40,000 USD. And they also found that the Model Y Standard is said to be able to drop luxury touches for only $5,000 off the price. Don't forget, there's going to be a lot of cut features, a lot of like the features that Teslas typically come with will not be included to make it a lot more affordable. But if this does come out, it's going to be a big winner for Tesla. This could really help them in a lot of different ways. One thing that Elon Musk said during the earnings call is that a lot of Americans don't have money. They don't have as much money nowadays. A lot of Americans are kind of like struggling. So during a times as we get closer to a potential recessionary environment or an environment with more unemployment and such, it makes a lot more sense for Tesla to have some kind of affordable model, right? You're seeing lots of tech companies sort of doing this. Apple, for example, are trying to create a more affordable iPhone one day. And we're also going to be seeing what happens with Tesla doing the same thing. So this is very, very awesome news. Although Tesla has not fully confirmed this yet, we are seeing some photos of this new Model Y, and this could be once again like a prototype. Very cool stuff. And if this does end up coming out, I think this could be a big winner in other areas like in China, especially because there's a lot of competition there, and other vehicles have very cheap EV production mechanisms, which would help Tesla compete a lot more. So I think this is very cool. This could be something that Tesla's working on, and I think this would be very awesome if they announce this. So the rumors about this could be very bullish for Tesla stock. We could try to bounce off this, on top of the fact that technicals do suggest a bounce is very probable if we hold above 430. More news that came out is that Elon Musk posted this video of Optimus, basically trying to learn kung fu, which is very, very cool. There's like a video of it trying to like fight. I think that's just very, very awesome. And then down here, somebody asked him, I think right over here, is it teleoperated or AI powered? And Musk said it's AI, not teleoperated. So that's very, very great news, which just shows how much Optimus is improving, how intelligent it's becoming, and how it's using machine learning mechanisms to just improve. That's great news for the longer term. And then eventually Tesla will once again be using these around their factories and eventually scaling them and, putting them in the commercial markets, which I think is just incredible news. Now, Canaccord gave Tesla a buy rating, which I think is great news. And the price price ratio has been dipping a little bit. So that once again kind of like tells us that Tesla's losing some strength. If we bounce a bit and get a rejection, this may continue to fall. So be warned that the ultimate downside is likely not done yet. However, Mondays, they tend to be green 52.3% of the time for Tesla. And when it comes to seasonality, 1 p.m. and around 3 p.m. is when Tesla sees high volatility. Unfortunately, October, it's only green about 31.25% now on average, which is not really much. So it does tend to be a more bearish month for Tesla. So be careful with that. So that's what I'm seeing at least thus far. So for other pieces of news, just real quick, tomorrow is going to be Monday, October 6th. We just have bill auctions, nothing else that's too significant. Then we have a bunch of Fed speakers on Tuesday from Bostic to Bowman and Kashkari. Getting ready for the FOMC minutes, which should be coming out on Wednesday. I believe it's going to be coming out still. I saw some reports about how the Fed is still going to function on Wednesday to release some data, but other like more federal sources are not going to be releasing data, like payrolls data, unemployment, and such. Some private sector pieces of data do suggest that there's still a weakening of the labor market, which is no surprise. So that's once again fueling the narrative that the Fed is going to be cutting. There's a 94.6% chance we get another cut by the Fed in October. So we'll see how it goes. The earnings calendar is also looking very quiet right now. I do believe next week we have big tech, not big tech, big bank earnings starting. Then we have tech earnings like in 2 weeks from now. So one more quiet earnings week, then things get very serious in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So be ready. As far as Tesla and the market go now, I'm just going to talk about the technical aspect of things, and then we'll continue at least to conclude the video. So for Tesla, like I said before, we're going to be watching our levels and just know it's a very tricky market. If Tesla remains bearish and we can't hold above 430, I think we retest 425. We have some support over there. If 425 fails us, then I do think the lows could be retested from Friday. So be very careful at 425. But what I like about Tesla is that when it comes to the bullish case, if we hold above 430, then I think we could easily retest 440 and then try to get back up to this resistance zone. So we'll be watching that very, very carefully. What's good is that we're forming a wick right here. We're trying to hold near 430, and we are due for some kind of balance. We went from 480 all the way down to like 416 within 2 days, which is absolutely insane. Tesla dumps like a rock. So, it makes a lot of sense for us to see some kind of balance if we could hold 430. So considering that there is, photos coming out of a potential cheaper Model Y for Tesla, and there's been some excitement about that, and that technicals do favor a bounce, and because we're near our 50 EMA where there's a wick forming right under it, all of that suggests that we should be looking for a bounce for 440 tomorrow as the most likely possibility. But don't forget that there is a head and shoulders like pattern, and this could just be the right shoulder of a head and shoulders forming, and then there could be further downside in the upcoming weeks. So I'm not necessarily a big bull, at least for the time being. Long term, I'm a huge bull, but for the short term, there might be some volatility in this like 440 to 430 range. Tomorrow, look for a bounce for like 440 to 444, then a dip back down some consolidation. So we'll see how it goes. That's the most likely possibility, but watch your levels just to be safe. Now for SPY, I also want to note that there's the possibility of a left shoulder, head, and then maybe a right shoulder if we kind of push. But here's plan A and plan B. So plan A is that if we push to 670 and then we get a rejection, then you guys could quite clearly see a left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and that's going to take us down towards this like 665 area, which is where I think our 50 EMA is going to be in just a couple of days near 665. Then we'll see if we bounce off that. That's like plan A. Plan B is that, well, if we keep going, and this is where I would set my stop, like at 662. Remember, when it comes to stops, it depends on what kind of position you have. If you have like a position that's dated for the end of the week, you could set a stop a couple of points up. But if it's a zero data expiration option, it's a completely different story. Those have bigger data decays and they lose valuation quickly. So you'd have to have a tighter stop if you play zero DTEs. But anyways, if we break 672, this is plan B, then we're bullish. We're going to continue to break to new all-time highs. Okay, so know those two possibilities. If we break 672, we're bullish. But if we reject near 670, then we're going to be more bearish. I think the bearish case makes more sense because first off, we have a head and shoulders here. And then a very common trend on SPY is that since September started, we do tend to sell off around like Tuesday/Wednesday, and then we tend to rally on Thursdays and Fridays. That's what the trend has been doing for the last couple of weeks. So I think that starting off with a weakness on like Monday/Tuesday makes sense, but then we could bounce by like the FOMC minutes day, or maybe like later on during the week for a big move back up. The daily on SPY is looking pretty weak. If you look at the daily, this does favor downside. So I would not be surprised if we end up seeing a bit of a bounce for 670. Then we consolidate and start dipping later on to like 665 or so. Then we'll see if we bounce off that or not. That's the most likely possibility I'm looking for. On the triple Q, break 607 and we're bullish. Lose 602 though, then we're looking for 605.98. I would not be surprised if we test 605. And then we need to break 607. If we come short, which is very possible, then we could be looking for a dip. This could be forming kind of like an inverse cup and handle, taking us back down to 605.98. And we'll see if we bounce or not. On the IWM, if we break past 247, we're looking for a bigger break. But if we end up losing 243, we're turning back down. This is favoring this gap over here. There's a gap to fill at 244. So if we pump, we need to break 248. If we come short, then we're going to be looking for that gap fill back down to 244. Then we'll see if we bounce or not. So keep that in mind. Now, ES, I want to be a little bit careful here. We have a potential left shoulder, a head, and then is this going to be like a right shoulder? I think we push for like 67.80. If we break 6,800, we're bullish. We're going to continue to make new all-time highs. But if we hit 67.80 and we can't break past that, this could still turn back down and form like a head and shoulders. So be careful. Look for a big test tomorrow. On NQ, we could be pushing back up to about 25,100. We're going to see if we break past 25,200 past that. If we come short in rejection, then we're looking for like a head and shoulders. And we could also be turning back down to 24,800 or below. Bitcoin's popping a bit, but be careful, everyone. In case we do just break past 125,000, we could be bullish. But be careful at 125,000's resistance. In case you reject it, we could be turning right back down. So we'll see how it goes. For Tesla, like I said before, we're trying to hold 430. I think we could be bouncing back up to 440. Then we'll see if we reject or not. So be very careful. But I do think we could be bouncing back up to 440 if we break past 430. Then we'll see what happens from there. Could be a small bounce. Nvidia may pop a bit towards like 189, but I would not be surprised if it retests 186 for a temporary dip like this. And we'll see if we bounce or not. For Aapl, we have kind of like a bearish divergence. I would like to see us break past 259. If not, we could be dipping back down to like 256, and we'll see if we bounce or not from there. But look for a small dip to 256, and we'll see what happens. For Netflix, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. Unless we hold above 1174, we're looking for 1164. Then we'll see if we turn back down to 1115. We'll see what happens after that. For MSTR, we're going to see if we can hold 349.3. If not, we could be dipping back down towards 345. So I think we're just barely holding support here, and it's going to be at risk of kind of turning right here. So notice that the last time we hit 355, we rejected. So it might be coming back down towards 349, then 345, and we'll see how it goes. Celsius has a slight bearish divergence. We're going to be looking for 57.54 to 56.35. Then we'll see if we bounce, but there is some downside risk. Super micro could be dipping back down towards like the 50 area, 50.29, and we'll see if we bounce. Palantir rejected here. We have resistance at 178.5 and support down here at 170. I do think there's going to be a test of 178 though, because we like to hold support at 172, which looks pretty good to me. Rivian could be retesting 13.92, and we'll see if we reject, but look for a temporary bounce. SoFi is on a bit of a downtrend. It might rebound a bit though, since we're holding our 200 EMA, and it might be going for like the 26 area before it rejects. AMD has 162.6, and we'll see if it bounces. Look for some downside first. ARM is going to likely be dipping to 150. PayPal, I could see this push back up towards this resistance up here around the 70 area. So long as we don't end up losing 68, we're looking a bit more bullish. Coinbase is in the middle. Might retest 375, and we'll see if it bounces to go higher. Might see a small dip. Amazon's in the middle. It's trying to make a higher low here. Might retest 221 and then reject, but we're still technically just range bound. Meta is on a bit of a downtrend unless we get back above 728. Might pop for 720, so look for a small bounce tomorrow, then we'll see if it rejects. But otherwise, it's still bearish. The trend is still bearish on Meta. We've been making lower highs for quite some time. So it could retest 720 and reject, but ultimately there is still some downside risk for the trend. Google looks a bit more bullish as long as you can hold 245.5 tomorrow. I'm looking for 248 to 250. If 245 breaks, it's going to be dumping a lot lower, but hopefully it bounces. And then Microsoft, as long as you hold 515.7, we're going to be looking for a bounce back up to 520, as long as you don't end up losing any major support. The VIX also has a bull flag. So is it possible that the VIX gets a rejection here and dips back down to the 16 area and then breaks out like this? Are we about to see a move like that where the market kind of like pops a bit and starts to dip and this comes up just temporarily? Then it could always reject between 17 and 18 again. It does not mean it's just going to break out forever, which could be indicative of the market getting a small dip like SPY testing 665, the QQQ retesting 598 before these things try to bounce. So we might see a small dip. Market may pop a bit in the morning. If we can't take out the all-time highs, then we could be churning. We could retest like 670 on SPY, then kind of like turn back down. We'll see if that ends up being the case, judging by SPY and the QQQ. And then as far as Tesla goes, there is weakness in Tesla stock overall, but we are due for a small bounce thanks to the Model Y news, not to mention the fact that we're holding our 50 EMA and forming a wick here. So I do think we're going to be trying to retest 440 tomorrow as long as those levels hold. And then we might see some consolidation after that. It might not be a massive bounce, just a small one. And then we might have to see what ends up happening from that point on because of the next resistance. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow. For now, look for a potential bounce that's coming. I think that's the most likely possibility. We'll watch your levels just to be safe. So be a very unbiased trader. Watch your levels. Be very patient in the market like this. And I'll see you guys tomorrow before market open. Thank you for listening, guys. I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. And I'll be back very soon tomorrow. Have a good weekend and peace out.